It is 530 BC. A young wrestler steps onto the sand at Olympia and locks eyes with the man across from him. His name is Milo of Croton, and he has not lost a competitive wrestling match in over a decade. He wins this match, then comes back 4 years later and wins again, then again. 6 Olympic titles in total, across more than 20 years of competition. Historians who study his record have called him the most dominant athlete in all of ancient history, in any sport, any era, any civilization. And here is the detail that should stop every modern gym-goer cold. Milo trained every single day. If you have spent any time in a gym or read anything about fitness in the last 20 years, you know exactly what the standard response to that is. Rest days are non-negotiable. Skip them and you will overtrain. Skip them long enough and your joints will ache, your strength will plateau, and your progress will stall completely. So, how did a man who trained daily for over 2 decades become the most unbeatable athlete the ancient world ever produced? The comfortable answer is genetics. And that answer is convenient, because it means you don't have to think too hard about what Milo was actually doing. But when historians went back to the original Greek texts, they found something that didn't sit right with the genetics explanation. Milo wasn't grinding himself into the ground every day. What he was doing was something far more calculated, and in some very specific ways, far smarter than anything most modern gyms teach. His rest days looked nothing like yours. And that single difference between how the Greeks rested and how we rest today might be the most overlooked reason why so many people hit a wall with their training and can never quite figure out why. The Tetrad, the system that made it possible. Around 200 AD, a Greek physician and sports scientist named Philostratus sat down and wrote one of the oldest sports coaching texts ever discovered. It was called Concerning Gymnastics. And buried inside it was a description of a 4-day training cycle that Greek athletes had already been using for centuries before he ever put it into words. He called it the Tetrad. When you read his description, even in translation, even 2,000 years later, it is immediately obvious that this was not guesswork. This was a precisely engineered system, built around a deep understanding of how the human body absorbs stress, recovers from it, and comes back stronger. Philostratus described it plainly. The first day prepares the athlete. The second is an all-out trial. The third is relaxation. The fourth is a middle condition. 4 words per day. Deceptively simple. But the detail inside each day is where everything interesting lives, and where modern fitness has made its most consequential mistakes. A1. Preparation. Day 1 is not a warm-up in the way we think of one. It is a series of short, explosive, high-intensity bursts performed just long enough to fully wake the body up and then deliberately stopped before fatigue has a chance to build. Jumps. Short sprints. Explosive drills. Nothing prolonged, nothing accumulating. The goal is priming. You are switching the nervous system on, telling your muscles what is coming, and preparing the body to perform at its absolute ceiling the following day. This is not a concept modern sports science disputes. Research on post-activation potentiation, the well-documented phenomenon where short explosive efforts prepare the neuromuscular system to produce more force in subsequent sessions, confirms exactly what the Greeks observed empirically. The Tetrad's Day 1 exists to make Day 2 better than it would otherwise be. Most modern training programs have no equivalent. Athletes go from rest directly into maximum effort, leaving the first 10 to 20 minutes of every hard session functioning as the primer that should have happened the day before. Day 2, the all-out trial. Day 2 is exactly what it sounds like. Maximum effort, heavy loads, everything the athlete had. This is the day where strength is actually built, where the body is pushed past what it's comfortable with, forced to adapt, forced to grow. And because Day 1 has properly primed the nervous system, the athlete arrives at Day 2 fully switched on and capable of producing more output than they could without that preparation. Here is the principle the Tetrad is built around that most modern training misses. Rather than distributing hard effort across 5 or 6 days a week, the Greeks concentrated it. One true all-out session, properly supported by preparation before it and intelligent recovery after it, builds more than 5 moderate sessions spread across a week. This is not an opinion. A 2022 analysis of 17 studies found no significant difference in muscle development between people training 3 days per week versus 6 when total training volume was matched. It was not the number of sessions that determined results. It was the quality of each session and the quality of the recovery between them. The Greeks already knew this. The research is just finally catching up. Day 3. The day everyone gets wrong. This is the day that separates the Greek system from almost everything modern fitness culture does. And it requires clearing up a fundamental misunderstanding before anything else. When Philostratus said relaxation, he did not mean lying down and doing nothing. This is the critical distinction. The Greeks understood something we have largely forgotten. Relaxation is not the absence of movement. Relaxation is intelligent, purposeful movement at low intensity. Walking, stretching, light wrestling drills, massage, gentle activity designed specifically to keep blood moving through the muscles that day 2 had worked hard. The Greek physician Galen, who treated athletes extensively, documented these recovery practices in detail. He understood something crucial. The body does not recover faster by stopping completely. It recovers faster by staying in gentle motion. When you train hard, your muscles accumulate metabolic waste products, lactate, hydrogen ions, cellular debris from the microscopic damage that hard training produces. These waste products cause soreness, reduce force production, and slow down everything that comes next. Gentle movement keeps blood actively circulating through those muscles. And blood circulation is the mechanism by which those waste products get cleared. Complete rest slows the process. Active recovery accelerates it. Research published in sports medicine journals over the past 2 decades has confirmed this repeatedly. One landmark study directly comparing active and passive recovery found that the active recovery group showed measurably greater increases in growth hormone levels, upper body muscular endurance, and lower body 1-rep max strength over time. The Greeks built active recovery into their system not as a luxury or an add-on, as a structural pillar. Day 3 was not optional, and treating your rest days as complete inactivity is not resting smarter, it is resting slower. Day 4, the bridge. Day 4 is moderate effort. Neither easy nor hard. Technique work, skill refinement, conditioning at a manageable pace. The body is not fully recovered from day 2 yet, but it is no longer fragile. Day 4 builds the work capacity and technical precision that makes the next day 2 harder and harder over time, without pushing the system deep enough to require extended recovery before the cycle begins again. Most people skip the equivalent of day 4 entirely. Their training is binary, either pushing hard or doing nothing. There is no calculated middle ground, no bridge, no accumulated technical development happening at a pace the body can actually absorb. And this is precisely why so many people find that their hard sessions stop improving even when they are trying just as hard. The structure that should be supporting those hard sessions, the priming before, the active recovery after, the moderate work in between, simply isn't there. Here is one of the most important facts in all of exercise science, and it does not receive nearly enough attention. Your muscles do not grow during training. They grow during recovery. When you lift something heavy or train at maximum intensity, you are not building strength in that moment. You are creating microscopic damage in your muscle fibers, tears that the body registers as a threat and immediately begins repairing. Specialized cells called satellite cells fuse into the damaged fibers and rebuild them thicker and stronger than before. That entire repair process, the real mechanism through which all your training becomes results, happens after you finish training, not during it. Which means the quality of your recovery is not a secondary concern sitting below the quality of your training. It is the primary mechanism by which training produces any results at all. Train without recovering properly, and you are doing the hard part without ever receiving the payoff. There is a hormonal dimension to this that explains precisely why the no days off, always push approach so often ends in a plateau. When you train hard, your body releases cortisol, the stress hormone. In the short term, this is useful. Cortisol mobilizes energy and drives the training response. But when you train at high intensity without adequate recovery between sessions, cortisol does not drop back down. It stays elevated. And chronically elevated cortisol creates what researchers call a catabolic environment, a state where the body is breaking down tissue faster than it can rebuild it. Strength stops progressing, joints start complaining, motivation drops, and no matter how hard you push, the needle stops moving. The Tetrad's 4-day rhythm prevented this from happening by design. Day 2 pushed cortisol high, deliberately and productively. Day 3 pulled it back down through gentle movement and active recovery. Day 4 kept the body active enough to maintain momentum without re-spiking stress. And Day 1 primed everything for the next hard effort. It was a hormonal cycle as much as a training cycle. And the Greeks had mapped it out intuitively, centuries before anyone had a word for cortisol. Think about how most people train today. Monday, they push hard. Tuesday, they push hard on different muscles. Wednesday, a rest day, meaning complete inactivity. Thursday, back to pushing hard. Friday, hard again. Saturday, something light. Sunday, full rest. On the surface, this looks disciplined. 6 days of training, rest when needed, keep showing up. But when you map it against what the Greeks understood, a problem becomes immediately obvious. There is no rhythm. The hard days and easy days are distributed arbitrarily, based on how sore someone feels or what muscle group they haven't hit yet, not based on where the body actually is in its recovery cycle. The rest days are completely passive, which makes them slower at clearing the metabolic waste from the hard days. There is no priming equivalent, so the hard days never reach their true ceiling. And because effort is spread across too many days, no single session is concentrated enough to produce the adaptation that one true all-out effort properly supported can generate. The body is either being pushed or it is stopped. There is no calculated middle ground. Modern fitness culture decided somewhere along the way that effort was the only variable that mattered. More sets, more sessions, more intensity. The Tetrad's logic that calculated recovery is just as important as calculated effort got buried under a culture that rewarded hustle and treated rest as weakness. The body hasn't changed since 530 BC. The biology is identical. What worked for Milo works for the same reason today. Before you assume this requires overhauling your entire training life, it doesn't. The adjustment is smaller than you'd think. Your Day 1 equivalent is 20 minutes of short explosive work before anything else. Jump squats, broad jumps, short sprint bursts. You are switching the nervous system on, not wearing it out. Stop before fatigue builds. Your Day 2 equivalent is your hardest training session of the week. Heavy compound movements, squats, deadlifts, presses, carries. Maximum effort. Concentrate it. This is the day you go to your ceiling, because Days 1 and 3 are structurally supporting it. Your Day 3 equivalent is your rest day, but you are not sitting still. 20 to 30 minutes of walking. Stretching. Light movement that keeps blood circulating through what Day 2 worked hard. This is the single biggest change most people can make immediately, and the one with the most immediate impact on how the next hard session feels. Your Day 4 equivalent is moderate effort. Technique work. Accessory movements. Conditioning at a challenging but manageable pace. The bridge between recovery and the next hard effort. Then, the cycle repeats. Modern fitness has more equipment, more nutrition science, and more data than the Greeks ever had access to. But somewhere along the way, it lost the thing that might matter most, the understanding that rest is not the absence of training. Rest is part of training. And if you are not recovering with the same intention you bring to your hardest sessions, you are leaving the most important half of the process on the table. The ancient world figured this out a very long time ago. We are still catching up. If this reframed how you think about recovery and what your rest days are actually for, subscribe. Because every week we go deep on the training systems that built history's most capable bodies and pull out exactly what modern training can learn from them. Drop a comment. Does your current training have any equivalent to Day 3, or are your rest days completely passive? See you in the next one.